Hi guys. So as promised, today is the talk, right? The love talk. Give me a second to turn down my music. All right, you guys. Understanding the mirror and eliminating duality is the most important conversation I will ever have with you guys. So it is extremely valuable knowledge because many of us fall into this pattern. I wouldn't be in business if it wasn't for this pattern, right? Like this is where I make all of my money because it's helping you guys understand how the illusion works, right? Because what is the most common problem men and women discover in relationships? Like, how is this pattern? Why does it occur? Why is this always what happens, right? And so the reason that I want to help you guys understand this is because it happens as a consequence of falling in love with our shadow and forgetting that we are the source of it. That's the bottom line and the truth, right, you guys? It's the truth. How many women can say, I don't know what happened. It started off so amazingly. It was great. It was great. And suddenly it wasn't. Or why do I feel like I'm dating Jekyll and Hyde? One minute I've got Jekyll and the next moment there's Hyde. Who is this person? And how is this me? Is this like probably the most common question you guys ask, right? And that is because what I need you to understand is in those moments when you're asking, how is this me? Let me smile at this one. You're forgetting who's animating it here to see themselves below. So I mean this sincerely because everybody outside of your eyes, see how very specific I am, your eyes, the reason that I say this, and I didn't say my eyes, I said your eyes. The reason that I say this, and I'm repeating myself over and over again, is because if you see out of your eyes, then by law, this that you're seeing is your creation, your individual creation, your shadow in the moment. It's why you're standing as the gatekeeper. It's why you're standing there. So many times what happens is when you first encounter a relationship or you have a relationship and it starts off so wonderful. It's just wonderful, right? In that moment, you're not fearing anything. You're not losing anything. You're just so excited to have met someone that you feel understands you and the way that they're behaving towards you. So in that moment, you don't know fear. Yes? So in that moment, regardless of who's on the other side, you don't know fear. So what you are witnessing is the alignment of your love being projected out into the universal mirror, the shadow receiving it without fear, and that honeymoon stage is what you experience. This is what you first get attracted to. This is what takes us off our game because here's what kicks in for almost everyone and what distorts, kind of like, how does this get destroyed? Or how did I go from here to here? Okay? So I want to explain what's happened. And the minute that you encounter yourself and you understand this and you understand the illusion and it finally clicks and you finally feel like this is it, this is what I've been waiting for my whole life, and you're so happy because this person can do no wrong, right? Because in that moment you're seeing yourself. Once that happens, mostly for women, but it can happen to men, they suddenly fear losing it. And that's what I want to talk to you guys about. Because you cannot lose yourself. If what you are seeing and what you are here to do is learn how to love yourself, then that means that you are loving your whole conception, including the person who is doing you the extreme favor of showing you what your body looks like, what you're animating in the moment. And so that is crucial and key, because if you don't understand that, the consequence of forgetting can look like the following. Here are the 5 or 6 or 7 consequences that I'm going to think of off the top of my head. These are the exact patterns, the universal experience that occurs as a consequence. Cheating, lying, disinterested, running away, ghosting, treating you like you mean nothing, treating you like second best. You went from top of the line to just, oh, you're not that important. That feeling. How many of you guys can relate to that moment? You can almost identify it. It's palpable. It's like, that's when I know it's real. And so in that moment, you're resenting the shadow for appearing the way that we have animated him or her. And that's what I'm asking you to reconcile. It's not about bypassing. It's not about excusing behavior. It's not about allowing someone to treat us like second best. It's about recognizing, oh yes, I forgot. I just put them on a pedestal up here and said that they're more important than I am. And so for all things, they must stay here and I must remain here and do whatever I can not to lose this. Okay? As a result, this person or your reflection, if they're going to behave exactly as they need to in order to show you the consequence of that action, then that moment becomes the moment of truth when you realize, wait a minute, even though I love them and I love myself simultaneously, I cannot put them above me and not expect the consequence to be I'm treated as less than. And then on top of that, because remember, if you're fooled by duality, on top of that, now you're going to resent the other human being for behaving exactly as your Autobot must. It's your Autobot, it's your other body, so you can see yourself in the moment. So what I want you guys to understand is every single human being, every single one, every human being in this world, if you are seeing it with your eyes, that is your creation. You are its maker. And the consequences that we live becomes forgetting that, and that is human. It's human. It's part of the human experience. But to remember is God, because as soon as you remember, oh, wow, I'm resenting myself for treating me exactly as I need to see as a consequence of not loving myself first. Wrong order of operations. And this is really important, you guys, because there are these moments. Many of you say, Cindy, I totally get what you're saying, but in the moment, dude, I forget. And like, how do you not react? You know, and that's a muscle, because I'm not saying excuse behavior. Right? You put a stop to it, yes, but you put a stop to it in one fell swoop, because you got to remember you're looking at yourself and this is the consequence of what has occurred. Many of us don't realize that we're doing this. We want to love, we want to nourish, we want to put them first. It only makes sense. It's your body. I get it. However, it is out of order when they are first and you are second. And the consequence is always the same. As I said, it always looks the same. The disinterest, the loss of passion, the lack of wanting to hang out with you, all of these things are perfectly normal consequence of not realizing that we're feeding the shadow more than we're feeding the light. And so as a result, the space between must sort of go through this downgrade. You're too far from the light of your own understanding in that moment. So the further you go, the more you go this way, because the shadow dictates what you do now, the less you enjoy the quality of your experience. This is bottom line, because you haven't realized you're its maker. So what I'm asking you guys to do is remember this at all times, because if you want harmony in a relationship, then this is first and foremost necessary, because you got to remember, you guys, what I'm teaching you is how to be the precog
of the next moment. The precognitive person who is aware that they're standing on the other side of their fears, blocking it, looking forward, but it actually is our view backwards. Remember that universal mirror. You can look in a mirror straight ahead, see behind you, okay? And you're learning how to reconcile these fears, recognize them in the moment, and realize why you're standing in front of them, so you can redefine the next moment, so you can not act in fear. See, many of the times when you guys come to me, the reason that you guys don't work with me forever, or why the breakthroughs are so immediate, or why I eliminate years and years and years of therapy, is because I'm asking you to take control of how you've been thinking. I'm asking you to stop treating the outside world as if it's anything other than your thoughts in the moment, all occurring at once, in order for you to maintain your control. That's what it boils down to. This pattern is 100% normal. I know it is. It's universal experience. I'm not asking you to deny it. I'm asking you to recognize the consequence of what happened when we loved our shadow more than we loved ourselves. If that makes sense, then understanding why these things happen, why these people behave this way, now gives us the ability to behave like Jesus when Jesus says, hold it, stop, stop, stop. Stop condemning this moment. They don't know what they're doing. And that's right. Because anyone outside of you is acting in accordance to how you think. And that's why you're standing there. If you're going to take responsibility for your universe and for everything in it, even if you just take responsibility for the immediate relationships you have, you must understand that every single body outside of you represents an aspect of your living memories on display. There is no division. So if you have a sister-in-law that you don't like, for example, because they've never seemed to really get along with you, understand that's how you chose to limit your body, your reflected body in that moment. And so you must live that way with a sister-in-law that doesn't like you. Isn't that what you're saying she is? This applies universally to everything. And so it becomes a matter of reconciling opposites and realizing that even when they stand on the other side of your fear, doing you a favor so you know not to go down that way, to turn around and be like, nope, that's not the truth of love. And then you start speaking love into your empty space. Now the precognitive being that has always existed now has the ability to pull from this space and give life to the relationship instead of giving life to the fears. We always have two choices. There's only two states. Knowing you are all love and everything at once, or being fearful and only identifying with parts and little tiny aspects of yourself so you can have an experience in the moment. But at the end of the day, we are here not only to have that experience in the moment, but also recognize ourselves and eliminate duality, because this ends all suffering. When you can look at someone and say, I totally understand what you've done and why, because you're animating my thoughts. And when you can say, I love you so much for showing me where I was slacking. Wow. And appreciate that. Now you've just lifted this person who had no idea that they were doing you a favor. Now the two of you walk in harmony towards the light as opposed to animating your fear. But you guys have to understand that if you're still dual, if you're still calling me, I don't understand why this happened, Cindy. I don't understand why blah, 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 blah. And then he did this, and then she did that, and she, and he, and and then this happened. And when you ask me, I don't understand, I need to take it back and be like, yes, you do. That's your old story. That's what you're there to fix. Take responsibility for it. And that's where we're going with this. And I almost want to say, we almost feel like, wait, we have to take the blame? And we almost feel like, nah, that person's acting all on his own accord, I assure you. You almost get stuck in that trap for a moment. That's why it's so useful. That's why it's so useful. Because if you understand the consequence of your actions, and once you're done playing these consequences and understanding exactly how they work, you are free to animate without fear, and without fear, you walk in your power everywhere you go. You're never afraid in a relationship ever again. You're never afraid, because even when that consequence appears, you know, wait, let me get my center. And then from peace, you turn around and they come to you. They must come to you. They're your shadow. It's law. And so, like, if you want to ask me, what's the secret juice, right? Like, how do you get a guy or a girl to never want to leave you? Kind of, like, how do you really cement in that knowing where you're not afraid? It's simple. You stop dividing yourself. You realize that you're on display everywhere around you, that every single body is one thing. God in you on display. You cannot be divided. In fact, something that I learned from the ultralight beings from the future, I want you guys to look around at this space, okay? And I want you to try to look through it and tell me if you see a bunch of little white pixelated dots. You see these little white pixelated dots? If you really look into space and you really look at the eyes, you will notice a bunch of little white pixelated dots in what looks like empty space. Pixelated dots. If you look close enough, you will see that. Okay? Do you know what that is? That's us. That's us. It looks like we're not there, right? It looks like there's only one body and a bunch of pixelated dots are what's empty space. Guess what? We are all just a little white dot that contains everything on God's body. The microcosm and the macrocosm are identical. So if we are just a little white pixelated dot on God's body, and every single person that appears is the culmination of all of those experiences, but they're you. They're you. And so now if you understand that, how are you going to speak life into the blank moment? How are you going to stop animating your fears, since you've already witnessed them, and then turn the trajectory and start speaking into those white pixelated dots? Because I assure you, the only reason I can hear you, whether I'm with you or not, is because I know I am the white pixelated dot in your future, in your current time. I am within you, appearing like a white pixelated dot, meaning that all of you are my same white little dot in my reality. You are with me wherever I go. Wherever I go. I can't be divided. So most people say, I have this moment where I understood the truth and I feel alone. And I'm here to say, that's impossible. I know what it looks like, right? But the light can't be divided. We are casting our shadow onto the universe to see the universe, so we can understand what it looks like from our point of perception and how we would serve as God to our own universe. That is the design. So if we are behaving like there's something else out there and allowing others to dictate how we should feel, then that is the problem. Because as the source of the reflection, we must understand that what we see outside is our body. So as you reside in peace, then you maintain the harmonious relationship you're always supposed to have, because you have deep compassion for the body that is appearing before you. You are always romancing yourself. You're always lifting them up, but you're never obsessed by what they do next. Why? Because you know what they're going to do next. They're your body. You need to be present to that. And so if you have not figured out how to do that, then that is the reason that you struggle in relationships. That's the reason they go from way up here to way down here in an instant. And it's also the reason why it's become a pattern. And so now what has happened and what's more difficult, and the reason probably why you guys talk to me, is once it's become a pattern, that's what you expect to happen because it's what you know. And so learning to break free from that pattern is why you come to me. Removing the layers. Saying, yes, I've made peace with all of those experiences. I needed to learn them. I needed to understand what the consequence of not loving myself looked like. So, of course, I entered relationships, I entered ideas in which I judged them in the moment. But in order to be present, in order to know what's happening at all times, you must take responsibility for what you're projecting. You are never not looking at yourself. For me, every time I look at a body, all I do is stand still and listen to what they have to say so that I can hear what part of my memory is on display and what needs to be fixed, or how can I help you see so you can get out of it, since I've been there, done that. And so most people are like, your insight is incredible. No, it's my experience on display, because whoever comes to me and it's coming and I can see them and hear them outside of me, but they're coming to me, that's me. I know it. And so the thing is I'm not special. This is true of everyone. But in order to get control of the universal reflection and have universal dominion, you must realize that every single body represents your thoughts in the moment, right? So for example, I live completely unafraid of the virus. God has me because God doesn't exist as a sickly human being. Okay? Now, there are going to be people that are afraid. They must demonstrate that side. And there are going to be people that aren't afraid, and they're going to demonstrate that side. Now, must we have compassion for the design because it's just playing out the roles? Yes. Are we going to get judged because we're not behaving in line? Yes. Are we going to be okay with it? Yes. Because past life you would have been afraid in this situation. Before waking up, before realizing you were God, before realizing that you could exist in the world but not of it. Past life you, this is what past life you looks like. So you gently speak to them about not being afraid. You gently speak to them about their immunity until eventually they come around. But remember, if they're still stuck in 3D, when someone dies, they judge that because they think death is real. So they're grieving, and you must have compassion for that because you know that they didn't die, they just woke up. And someone said to me, but everybody should live as long as they want in their body. And that's exactly what they did. So why are we judging that? Yes? Okay? Don't judge what is happening, or you freeze the moment. You freeze it, and you stand as its gatekeeper until you understand it and solve the puzzle. Okay? That's what's important. That is what's important, you guys, because this will end it. Do you know how many calls I get a day that says, I don't know what happened, I don't know how to stop this, or I totally expected him to change and he didn't. You see what's wrong with that? It's not about he didn't. You didn't if he didn't. You're still thinking out there, when the only thing that matters is the source reflection emitting the projection so it can see itself in the moment. So who needs to remember order of operations before going into any situation? And that's the problem, because we're so used to looking out there, especially if we know the law, looking out there and waiting to see if they've changed. They have changed. The problem is the two worlds look identical in the moment. The change and the not change look identical. Usually why I ask you guys, please train yourself to look for what's different in your reality, because some of you have already shifted successfully, and the minute you say it didn't happen, you take 5 steps backwards. And so when you take those 5 steps backwards, your heart says, oh, okay, you didn't want that yet? Oh, my bad. So there you go backwards. And then you set about again to try a new method to get back. So you then go back and you're finally there for a few days. You're feeling great. And the minute that you forget, you go back to it didn't happen. You introduce the yo-yo effect. Because every time you declare something into a blank moment, you get to be correct. And that problem with that is we get to be correct even when we're wrong. We get to be correct even when we're wrong. Meaning that we should know better than to project fear and then get mad at the fear for being on display. Everyone's innocent. The only person in control is the person who's using their eyes to see and define the next moment. Because that's the only time you are one with your source light and then directing all the little pixelated white dots in the right direction. And those little pixelated white dots are the entire universe in the multiverse. This is how we move the multiverse together at once. I mean this sincerely. There's no need to ever fear. There's never a need to ever, it's so funny. People are like, the relationship sort of fizzled out. You mean you outgrew it and you were ready to move on? You choose every single time, but it's never not you. That's what you have to make peace with. 100%. It cannot be an excuse of, I don't know why this person is behaving this way. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. But if you say you don't, then it will be a mystery to you because you've declared it to be a mystery. But it's not. You should stop and say, oh, that's right. I'm the precognitive person that gets to pull from eternity and create a new moment. So I either preserve it in salt or I make a new moment. And the preservation in salt is not bad. If we judge for ourselves, it's a great experience. But if we judge against ourselves, it's not a great experience. So that's what I want to talk to you guys about. It's going to be gentle. It's going to be this progressive talk of reconciling until you see only one thing. No matter how individualized it looks, it's only one thing. And everyone you encounter, everyone you identify, everyone you gift with this love is you. And I don't want to bypass, and I don't want people to stay in situations where they're being abused, right? But understand that the abuse is the consequence of making them more important. The shadow grew bigger than you are. Is it true? No, it's a full-on illusion. But it's a required consequence so that we don't get sucked into that. Because we get to be right and it becomes real. We do have a vessel. We are supposed to enjoy our experiences. But if we know how to control them, we have peace in every moment. If we don't, then we get to exist in a world where we have no idea what our next moment would be, which is still working in our favor. But if we freeze it in fear, we're not going to enjoy it in the same way. It still happens regardless, because we're either God's automaton Autobot, or we've realized we're God and everything else is our automaton Autobot. In the sense that you're going to realize that every single body is your living memory, so it's you. Be kind, be love, and you will balance it out. But relationships don't have to go downhill. Men do not lose interest just because they lost interest. That's not what happens. What they lose interest in is the fact that you are no longer emanating from your highest light in your power. So naturally, it doesn't see what it used to see before. So it tends to lose interest. This is a consequence of ourself because we lost interest in ourselves the minute we fell in love with our reflection. There's nothing wrong with falling in love with your reflection if you understand how the relationship works, that they move as one thing together at all times. But if we forget, it's tough. It's a tough place. It's a tough place. If you guys have a union like something that very few people get to experience but have always wanted. A union in which you trade places, you trade perspectives, you are one, you're telepathically joined, they always see you in the best light, you always see them in the best light, you never fear, you're always happy, you're always joyful, all your needs are always met because you meet them in yourself. You also reflect back to them this and you want to serve them, but they're not out of order. They do not take life force. They expand what you give. And so that's the difference when you're at peace, in harmony. And it's important. Because this way you never neglect the shadow and treat it like it's less than, so it loves this. Yes. But it's always in balance and not in fear. I guarantee you, if you are fearful, your every word out of your mouth is screaming fear. I'm afraid to lose you. 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 I'm afraid to speak up right now and be myself because I'm afraid I'm going to lose you. I'm afraid to face this because I'm afraid I'm going to lose you. And see, if you're not willing to walk through this valley of death that you've created in fear, then it will be what controls you. It will be what you're enslaved to. And you will feel out of control, and I promise you at that point, you are on the wrong side of the equation. So that's my talk. I will keep doing this. I do have a standard appointment at 2. I can't wait to talk to her. And then other than that, it is my day off. I'm going to work on some projects, especially our color seminar. But think about what I'm saying to you guys. Think about it, because the answer to everything is stop making 2 when there's only one thing. That's a message from God, you guys. God told you, I cannot be divided. I am all things, the good, the bad, whatever you need. All of these things must exist. I am one thing. So when we separate, who's not being loved in the moment? And so we live as a consequence in those shadows. Not necessary. Not necessary. If you understand this, you would never cry again. You'd never be like, I don't know why he behaved this way. I don't get it. Or she. Because suddenly you realize that that is your body pretending not to know what's going on and just responding to you. That's where your power is. That's where your power is. Because everybody's looking for love and they're looking outside. Big mistake. Big, 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 big. Big. As the source, here's the universal mirror. As the source, whose responsibility is it to project love into it so that you receive love back? That's mastery. But if I'm afraid of my shadow, aren't I going to get the short end of the stick always, because the mirror must be what I put into it? All right? So remember now, either everyone else is to blame or you own what you've done and you course correct. And as soon as you do that, you turn the trajectory around. And there are people on here that know what I'm talking about, where they love with detachment, but suddenly the shadow is like, hey, remember me? What's going on? Hi, hey. And you kind of laugh and smile because it's like, oh yeah, this is me, recognizing the light in me. Okay? It's going to take practice. It's going to take practice. If you have any issues with this and you're still trying to understand how the light and the dark work, contact me. No problem. I live for this. This is not work to me. This is what I love. Because if I get to exist in two places at once, the light and the dark, and I understand how they work, and I get to be in 3D and everywhere else at once, because I understand how that works, then I think I'm onto something here, you guys. I'm definitely onto something, because now wherever I go, I'm the light and the darkness lights up under my feet, as opposed to feeling out of control. Okay? Love you guys. Think about what I'm saying. Think about what I'm saying. If you're still having trouble reconciling opposites, it's only because you haven't understood that you are first and the mirror must reflect back what you're doing. That's the most important thing, because even as doctors, as therapists, and as healers, if we encounter a sick person and we say that they're sick and we treat the sick person this way, then we're making more work for ourselves. If we're in therapy and we haven't recognized, oh, this person is trying to show me what's going on inside of me as a therapist, I'm making more work for myself, aren't I? I'm not realizing that this person is me. So if you know that, then you hold this person in the highest light. You assure them there's no way they can be sick. You tell them about universal laws, and click, click, suddenly healed. Suddenly seeing things different. And it looks like a miracle, but it's not. You just maintained awareness of what is always true and then use that to help the other person, which is still an illusion because it's you. So now this person's experience becomes harmonious with yours, and you now gain their universal experience. Now this knowledge becomes your knowledge, and boom, boom, boom. That's the object of the game. Make peace with everyone, because no one is allowed to be left out. The more you integrate yourself, it's like every single shadow is a portal that you must pass to get beyond your self-conception. And your self-conception is what's being animated outside of you. Someone's just doing you a favor. Hey, look at me, I can show you inside yourself. Hey, check me out. So regardless of how they're acting, you have to recognize that in the moment so that you can calm it. Otherwise, we look like we're living in this frenzied state. And we feel like we're getting dragged along. You know what I'm talking about? That dragged around, like, it's not a good feeling. All right, you guys? So think about this. Take a moment. It's not about blame. It's about, oh, that's what I was doing? Okay, cool. Well, let's fix that. So let's work on that, you guys. Let's work on transcending duality, because the truth is, the minute you transcend duality and you realize that you are the light behind the veil, you're not afraid of anything ever. Not a relationship, not anything, because your center, your sweet spot is knowing that. And so once you are at peace like that, everything that comes to you is meant to come to you. It's no longer a struggle, because the only struggle that's ever introduced is the fight you have with yourself and the lack of recognition of what's on the other side of you appearing like it's not you. It's the only struggle we will ever have. But if we get it, it changes everything. Because now you could have a sick partner. Let's say he gets ill or something for a second, right? It takes you 2 seconds to be like, nah. No way. They can't get sick. You hold that. Then they join. But if you drive into and you start sympathizing with their sickness, it's like the equivalent of me trying to get cancer just to prove that I can heal cancer. Wrong order of operations. Okay? So remember, Remember this, you guys. Think about it. Think about what I'm saying. Think about how to switch, how to turn. Remember, if everything's backwards, you must learn to think backwards to the source of origin so that you have control over this backward movement to create the new moment. Otherwise, trust me when I say, you will go further away from the light of your understanding and you'll be sucked into the drama thinking everything outside of you is real. It's designed that way. Love you. Bye, guys.